Sami people.
The Sami people, also spelled Sámi or Sámi, are the indigenous Finno-Ugric people inhabiting the Arctic area of Sápmi, which today encompasses parts of far northern Norway, Sweden, Finland, the Kola Peninsula of Russia, and the border area between South and Middle Sweden and Norway. The Sámi are the only indigenous people of Scandinavia recognized and protected under the International Conventions of Indigenous Peoples, and are hence the northernmost indigenous people of Europe. Sámi ancestral lands span an area of approximately 388,350 kilometers (2), which is approximately the size of Norway, in the Nordic countries. Their traditional languages are the Sámi languages and are classified as a branch of the Uralic language family. Traditionally, the Sámi have pursued a variety of livelihoods, including coastal fishing, fur trapping, and sheep herding. Their best-known means of livelihood is semi-nomadic reindeer herding. Currently about 10% of the Sámi are connected to reindeer herding and 2,800 are actively involved in herding on a full-time basis. For traditional, environmental, cultural and political reasons, reindeer herding is legally reserved only for Sámi people in certain regions of the Nordic countries.
Etymologies.
The Sámi are often known in other languages by the exonyms Lap, Lap, or Laplanders, but many Sámi regard these as pejorative terms. Variants of the name Lap were originally used in Sweden and Finland and, through Swedish, adopted by all major European languages, English Laps, German, Dutch, Lappen, Russian, Laperi, Laperi, Ukrainian, Laperi, French, Lapans, Greek, Lapones, Lapones, Italian, Laponi, Polish, Lapończycy, Portuguese, Lapos, Spanish, Lapones, Romanian, Laponi, Turkish, Lapan. The first known historical mention of the Sámi, naming them Feni, was by Tacitus, about 98 CE. Variants of Finn or Feni were in wide use in ancient times, judging from the names Feni and Finoi in classical Roman and Greek works. Finn, or variants, such as Skridfinn, Striding Finn was the name originally used by Norse speakers, and their Proto-Norse-speaking ancestors, to refer to the Sámi, as attested in the Icelandic Eddas and Norse sagas, 11th to 14th centuries. The etymology is somewhat uncertain, but the consensus seems to be that it is related to Old Norse Finna, from Proto-Germanic Finthanen, to find, the logic being that the Sámi, as hunter-gatherers found their food, rather than grew it. It has been suggested, however, that it may originally have been a more general term for northern hunter-gatherers, rather than referring exclusively to the Sámi, which may explain why two Swedish runestones from the 11th century apparently refer to what is now southwestern Finland as Finland. Note that in Finnish, Finns, inhabitants of Finland, do not refer to themselves as Finns. As Old Norse gradually developed into the separate Scandinavian languages, Swedes apparently took to using Finn exclusively to refer to inhabitants of Finland, while Sámi came to be called Laps. In Norway, however, Sámi was still called Finns at least until the modern era, reflected in toponyms like Finnmark, Finnsnes, Finnod and Finnøy, and some northern Norwegians will still occasionally use Finn to refer to Sámi people, although the Sámi themselves now consider this to be a pejorative term. Finnish immigrants to northern Norway in the 18th and 19th centuries were referred to as Kfinns to distinguish them from the Sámi Finns. Ethnic Finns are a distinct group from Sámi. The exact meaning of the term Lap, and the reasons it came into common usage, are unknown. In modern Scandinavian languages, Lap means a patch of cloth for mending, which may be a description of the clothing, called a gakti, that the Sámi wore. Another possible source is the Finnish word lape, which in this case means periphery. It is unknown how the word Lap came into the Norse language, but one of the first written mentions of the term is in the Gesta Danorum by 12th century Danish historian Saxo Grammaticus, who referred to the two Lapias, although he still referred to the Sámi as Skridfinns. In fact, Saxo never explicitly connects the Sámi with the two Laplands. The term Lap was popularized and became the standard terminology by the work of Johannes Schaeferus, Acta Laponica, 1673, but was also used earlier by Olaus Magnus in his description of the northern people, 1555. There is another suggestion that it originally meant wilds. In Sweden and Finland, Lap is common in place names, such as Lappi, Länsi-Suomenlaani, and Lapinlahti, Itä-Suomenlaani, in Finland. And Lap, Stockholm County, Lap, Södermanland, and Lapabo, Småland, in Sweden. As already mentioned, Finn is a common element in Norwegian, particularly Northern Norwegian, place names, whereas Lap is exceedingly rare. In the North Sami language, Lahtponomos means a person who is lost, from the verb lahtpot, to get lost. Sami refer to themselves as Samit, the Samis, or Sapmilas, of Sami kin, the word Sami being inflected into various grammatical forms. It has been proposed that Sami, presumably borrowed from the Proto-Finnic word, heim, Finnish for Tivstia, Proto-Finnic sama, the second is still being found in the archaic derivation Humalainen, and perhaps Suomi, Finnish for Finland, Sum/Soma, compare Suomalainen, supposedly borrowed from a Proto-Germanic source Soma from Proto-Baltic sama, in turn borrowed from Proto-Finnic sama, are of the same origin and ultimately borrowed from the Baltic word zem, meaning land. The Baltic word is cognate with Slavic zemlja, zemlja, which also means land. The Sami institutions, notably the parliaments, radio and TV stations, theatres, etc., all use the term Sami, including when addressing outsiders in Norwegian, Swedish, Finnish, or English. In Norwegian, the Sami are today referred to by the Norwegianized form same, whereas the word Lap would be considered archaic and pejorative. Terminological issues in Finnish are somewhat different. Finns living in Finnish Lapland generally call themselves Lappalainen, whereas a similar word for the Sami people is Lappalainen. This can be confusing for foreign visitors because of the similar lives Finns and Sami people live today in Lapland. Lappalainen is also a common family name in Finland. As in the Scandinavian languages, Lappalainen is often considered archaic or pejorative, and Saamelainen is used instead, at least in official contexts.
History.
Since prehistoric times, the Sami people of Arctic Europe have lived and worked in an area that stretches over the regions now known as Norway, Sweden, Finland and the Russian Kola Peninsula. They have inhabited the northern Arctic and subarctic regions of Finno-Scandinavia and Russia for at least 5,000 years. The Sami are counted among the Arctic peoples and are members of circumpolar groups such as the Arctic Council Indigenous Peoples Secretariat. Petroglyphs and archaeological findings such as settlements dating from about 10,000 BC can be found in the traditional lands of the Sami. The now obsolete term for the archaeological culture of these hunters and gatherers of the late Paleolithic and early Mesolithic is Kumsa. A cultural continuity between these Stone Age people and the Sami can be assumed due to evidence such as the similarities in the decoration patterns of archaeological bone objects and Sami decoration patterns, and there is no archaeological evidence of this population being replaced by another. Recent archaeological discoveries in Finnish Lapland were originally seen as the continental version of the Kumsa culture about the same age as the earliest finds on the coast of Norway. It is hypothesized that the Kumsa followed receding glaciers inland from the Arctic coast at the end of the last ice age, between 11,000 and 8,000 years BC as new land opened up for settlement, for example, modern Finnmark area in the northeast, to the coast of the Kola Peninsula. Since the Sami are the earliest ethnic group in the area, they are consequently considered an indigenous population of the area.
Southern limits of Sami settlement in the past.
How far south the Sami extended in the past has been debated among historians and archaeologists for many years. The Norwegian historian Ingvar Nielsen, commissioned by the Norwegian government in 1889 to determine this question to settle contemporary questions of Sami land rights, concluded that the Sami had lived no farther south than Lyn in Nord-Trøndelag County until around 1500, when they started moving south, reaching the area around Lake Femunden in the 18th century. This hypothesis is still accepted among many historians, but has been the subject of scholarly debate in the 21st century. In recent years, several archaeological finds indicate a Sámi presence in southern Norway in the Middle Ages, and southern Sweden, including finds in Ledger, in Vang and Valdres and in Hollandal and Hallingdal. Proponents of the Sámi interpretations of these finds assume a mixed population of Norse and Sámi people in the mountainous areas of southern Norway in the Middle Ages.
Origins of the Norwegian Sea Sámi. The bubonic plague.
Until the arrival of bubonic plague to northern Norway in 1349, the Sámi and the Norwegians occupied very separate economic niches. The Sámi hunted reindeer and fished for their livelihood. The Norwegians, who were concentrated on the outer islands and near the mouths of the fjords, had access to the major European trade routes so that, in addition to marginal farming in the Nordland, Troms, and Finnmark counties, they were able to establish commerce, supplying fish in trade for products from the south. The two groups coexisted using two different food resources. According to Old Nordic texts, the Sea Sámi and the Mountain Sámi are two classes of the same people and not two different ethnic groups as had been erroneously believed. This social-economic balance greatly changed with the introduction of the bubonic plague in northern Norway in December 1349. The Norwegians were closely connected to the greater European trade routes, along which the plague travelled. Consequently, they were infected and died at a far higher rate than Sámi in the interior. Of all the states in the region, Norway suffered the most from this plague. Depending on the parish, 60 to 76% of the northern Norwegian farms were abandoned following the plague, while land rents, another possible measure of the population numbers, dropped down to between 9 to 28% of pre-plague rents. Although the population of northern Norway is sparse compared to southern Europe, the spread of the disease was just as rapid. The method of movement of the plague-infested flea, Xenopsilochiopsis, from the south was in wooden barrels holding wheat, rye, or wool, where the fleas could live, and even reproduce, for several months at a time. The Sámi, having a non-wheat or rye diet, eating fish and reindeer meat, living in communities detached from the Norwegians, and being only weakly connected to the European trade routes, fared far better than the Norwegians.
Fishing industry.
Fishing has always been the main livelihood for the many Sámi living permanently in seaside areas. Archaeological research shows that the Sámi have lived along the coast and once lived much farther south in the past, and they were also involved in work other than just reindeer herding, for example, fishing, agriculture, ironwork. The fishing along the North Norwegian coast, especially in the Lofoten and Vesterålen Islands, is quite productive with a variety of fish, and during medieval times, it was a major source of income for both the fishermen and the Norwegian monarchy. With such massive population drops caused by the Black Death, the tax revenues from this industry greatly diminished. Because of the huge economic profits that could be had from these fisheries, the local authorities offered incentives to the Sámi, faced with their own population pressures, to settle on the newly vacant farms. This started the economic division between the Sea Sámi, Stjórnarmenn, who fished extensively off the coast, and the Mountain Sámi, Ílsamenn, Inlandsmenn, who continued to hunt, among other, small game animals, and later herd, reindeer. Even as late as the early 18th century, there were many Sámi who were still settling on these farms left abandoned from the 1350s. After many years of continuous migration, these Sea Sámi became far more numerous than the reindeer Mountain Sámi, who today only make up 10% of all Sámi. In contemporary times, there are also ongoing consultations between the government of Norway and the Sámi parliament regarding the right of the coastal Sámi to fish in the seas on the basis of historical use and international law. State regulation of sea fisheries underwent drastic change in the late 1980s. The regulation linked quotas to vessels and not to fishers. These newly calculated quotas were distributed free of cost to larger vessels on the basis of the amount of the catch in previous years, resulting in small vessels in Sámi districts falling outside the new quota system to a large degree.
Mountain Sámi.
As the Sea Sámi settled along Norway's fjords and inland waterways pursuing a combination of farming, cattle raising, trapping and fishing, the smaller minority of the mountain Sámi continued to hunt wild reindeer. Around 1500, they started to tame these animals into herding groups, becoming the well-known reindeer nomads, often portrayed by outsiders as following the archetypal Sámi lifestyle. The mountain Sámi faced the fact that they had to pay taxes to three nation-states, Norway, Sweden and Russia, as they crossed the borders of each of the respective countries following the annual reindeer migrations, which caused much resentment over the years. Sweden made the Sámi work in a Slovenian exile, causing many Sámis to flee from the area, so a large part of the provinces previously used by Pite and Lule Sámis is depopulated. Government troops were ordered to prevent the Sámi from fleeing.
Post-1800s.
For long periods of time, the Sámi lifestyle thrived because of its adaptation to the Arctic environment. Indeed, throughout the 18th century, as Norwegians of northern Norway suffered from low fish prices and consequent depopulation, the Sámi cultural element was strengthened, since the Sámi were mostly independent of supplies from southern Norway. However, during the 19th century, Norwegian authorities pressured the Sámi to make Norwegian language and culture universal. Strong economic development of the north also ensued, giving Norwegian culture and language higher status. On the Swedish and Finnish sides, the authorities were less militant, although the Sámi language was forbidden in schools, and strong economic development in the north led to weakened cultural and economic status for the Sámi. From 1913 to 1920, the Swedish race segregation political movement created a race-based biological institute that collected research material from living people and graves, and sterilized Sámi women. Throughout history, Swedish settlers were encouraged to move to the northern regions through incentives such as land and water rights, tax allowances, and military exemptions. The strongest pressure took place from around 1900 to 1940, when Norway invested considerable money in effort to wipe out Sámi culture. Anyone who wanted to buy or lease state lands for agriculture in Finnmark had to prove knowledge of the Norwegian language and had to register with a Norwegian name. This caused the dislocation of Sámi people in the 1920s, which increased the gap between local Sámi groups, something still present today, that sometimes has the character of an internal Sámi ethnic conflict. In 1913, the Norwegian Parliament passed a bill on native act land to allocate the best and most useful lands to Norwegian settlers. Another factor was the scorched earth policy conducted by the German army, resulting in heavy war destruction in northern Finland and northern Norway in 1944-45, destroying all existing houses, or kotter, and visible traces of Sámi culture. After World War II the pressure was relaxed, though the legacy was evident into recent times, such as the 1970s law limiting the size of any house Sámi people were allowed to build. The controversy around the construction of the hydroelectric power station in Alta in 1979 brought Sámi rights onto the political agenda. In August 1986, the national anthem, Sámi Soga Lavlla and flag, Sámi flag, of the Sámi people were created. In 1989, the first Sámi parliament in Norway was elected. In 2005, the Finnmark Act was passed in the Norwegian parliament, giving the Sámi parliament and the Finnmark Provincial Council a joint responsibility of administering the land areas previously considered state property. These areas, 96% of the provincial area, which have always been used primarily by the Sámi, now belong officially to the people of the province, whether Sámi or Norwegian, and not to the Norwegian state.
Contemporary.
The indigenous Sámi population is a mostly urbanized demographic, but a substantial number live in villages in the high Arctic. The Sámi are still coping with the cultural consequences of language and culture loss related to generations of Sámi children taken to missionary and or state-run boarding schools, and the legacy of laws that were created to deny the Sámi rights, for example, to their beliefs, language, land and to the practice of traditional livelihoods. The Sámi are experiencing cultural and environmental threats, including oil exploration, mining, dam building, logging, climate change, military bombing ranges, tourism and commercial development. Sápmi is rich in precious metals, oil, and natural gas. Mining activities in Arctic Sápmi cause controversy when they are in grazing and calving areas. Mining projects are rejected by the Sámi Parliament in the Finnmark area. The Sámi Parliament demands that resources and mineral exploration should benefit mainly the local Sámi communities and population, as the proposed mines are in Sámi lands and will affect their ability to maintain their traditional livelihood. Mining locations even include ancient Sámi spaces that are designated as ecologically protected areas, such as the Vendelålen Nature Reserve. Other languages. In Russia's Kola Peninsula, vast areas have already been destroyed by mining and smelting activities, and further development is imminent. This includes oil and natural gas exploration in the Barents Sea. There is a gas pipeline that stretches across the Kola Peninsula. Oil spills affect fishing and the construction of roads. Power lines may cut off access to reindeer calving grounds and sacred sites. In northern Finland, there has been a long-standing dispute over the destruction of forests, which prevents reindeer from migrating between seasonal feeding grounds and destroys supplies of lichen that grow on the upper branches of older trees. This lichen is the reindeer's only source of sustenance during the winter months, when snow is deep. The logging has been under the control of the state-run forest system. Greenpeace, reindeer herders, and Sámi organizations carried out a historical joint campaign, and in 2010, Sámi reindeer herders won some time as a result of these court cases. Industrial logging has now been pushed back from the most important forest areas either permanently or for the next 20 years, though there are still threats, such as mining and construction plans of holiday resorts on the protected shorelines of Lake Inari. Government authorities and NATO have built bombing practice ranges in Sámi areas in northern Norway and Sweden. These regions have served as reindeer calving and summer grounds for thousands of years, and contain many ancient Sámi sacred sites. The Swedish government has allowed the world's largest onshore wind farm to be built in Pittia, in the Arctic region where the eastern Kikajay village has its winter reindeer pastures. The wind farm will consist of more than 1,000 wind turbines, 180 mill and an extensive road infrastructure, which means that the feasibility of using the area for winter grazing in practice is impossible. Sweden has received strong international criticism, including by the UN Racial Discrimination Committee and the Human Rights Committee, that Sweden violates Sámi landrättigheter, land rights, including by not regulating industry. In Norway, some Lappish politicians, for example, Eilik Skitalo, suggest giving the Sámi parliament a special veto right on planned mining projects. State regulation of sea fisheries underwent drastic change in the late 1980s. The regulation linked quotas to vessels and not to fishers. These newly calculated quotas were distributed free of cost to larger vessels on the basis of the amount of the catch in previous years, resulting in small vessels in Sámi districts falling outside the new quota system to a large degree. The Sámi recently stopped a water prospecting venture that threatened to turn an ancient sacred site and natural spring called Satasaja into a large-scale water bottling plant for the world market, without notification or consultation with the local Sámi people, who make up 70% of the population. The Finnish National Board of Antiquities has registered the area as a heritage site of cultural and historical significance, and the stream itself is part of the Detnutana watershed, which is home to Europe's largest salmon river, an important source of Sámi livelihood. In Norway, the government plans for the construction of a hydroelectric power plant in the Alta River in Finnmark, northern Norway led to a political controversy, rallying of the Sámi popular movement in the late 1970s and early 1980s. As a result, the opposition in the Alta controversy brought attention not only to environmental issues but also to the issue of Sámi rights. Reindeer have major cultural and economic significance for indigenous peoples of the north. The human ecological systems in the north, like reindeer pastoralism, are sensitive to change, perhaps more than in virtually any other region of the globe, due in part to the variability of the Arctic climate and ecosystem and the characteristic ways of life of indigenous Arctic peoples. The 1986 Chernobyl nuclear disaster caused nuclear fallout in the sensitive Arctic ecosystems and poisoned fish, meat and berries. Lichens and mosses are two of the main forms of vegetation in the Arctic and are highly susceptible to airborne pollutants and heavy metals. Since many do not have roots, they absorb nutrients and toxic compounds through their leaves. The lichens accumulated airborne radiation, and 73,000 reindeer had to be destroyed as unfit for human consumption in Sweden alone. The government promised Sámi indemnification, which was not acted upon by government. Radioactive wastes and spent nuclear fuel have been stored in the waters off the Kola Peninsula, including locations that are only 2 kilometers from places where Sámi live. There are a minimum of 5 dumps, where spent nuclear fuel and other radioactive waste are being deposited in the Kola Peninsula, often with little concern for the surrounding environment or population. The tourism industry in Finland has been criticized for turning Sámi culture into a marketing tool by promoting opportunities to experience authentic Sámi ceremonies and lifestyle. At many tourist locales, non-Sámis dress in inaccurate replicas of Sámi traditional clothing, and gift shops sell crude reproductions of Sámi handicraft. One popular ceremony, crossing the Arctic Circle, actually has no significance in Sámi spirituality. To the Sámi, this is an insulting display of cultural exploitation.
Discrimination against the Sámi.
The Sámi have for centuries been the subject of discrimination and abuse by the dominant cultures claiming possession of their lands right on to the present day. They have never been a single community in a single region of Lapland, which until recently was considered only a cultural region. Yet to this day, Sámi are being forced to choose the specific identity of the country within whose declared borders the Sámi's land lies and adopt that country's values at the expense of Sámi culture. The Swedish and Norwegian governments have been singled out as especial oppressors of the Sámi in this regard, and various specific acts of racism and hate against the Sámi continue to go unpunished. Norway has been greatly criticized by the international community for the politics of Norwegianization of and discrimination against the Aboriginal population of the country. Recent research shows that the Sámi are discriminated against in many contexts. It is especially worrying that Sámi children and adolescents are exposed to various forms of bullying against the Sámi because of their Sámi identity. On April 8, 2011, the UN Racial Discrimination Committee recommendations were handed over to Norway. These addressed many issues, including the educational situation for students needing bilingual education in Sámi. One committee recommendation was that no language be allowed to be a basis for discrimination in the Norwegian anti-discrimination laws, and it recommended wording of Racial Discrimination Convention Article 1 contained in the Act. Further points of recommendation concerning the Sámi population in Norway included the incorporation of the Racial Convention through the Human Rights Act, improving the availability and quality of interpreter services, and equality of the Civil Ombudsman's recommendations for action. A new present status report was to have been ready by the end of 2012. In Sweden, the Sámi often feel that the schools do not contribute to strengthening the Sámi children's identity and that children who are subjected to harassment and discrimination are not given the protection they need and are entitled to. Sámi children, young people, and parents have also said that harassment connected to their ethnic background is part of their day-to-day life. It is manifested through taunts and other types of abuse. The Sámi feel that the local authorities do not take the Sámi right to mother tongue teaching seriously, even to the point of openly opposing it. It is evident that a child's possibilities for receiving mother tongue teaching are in many cases dependent on the parents' involvement and knowledge of Sámi linguistic rights. Even in Finland, where Sámi children, like all Finnish children, are entitled to daycare and language instruction in their own language, the Finnish government has denied funding for these rights in most of the country, including even in Rovaniemi, the largest municipality in Finnish Lapland. Sámi activists have pushed for nationwide application of these basic rights. As in the other countries claiming sovereignty over Sámi lands, Sámi activists' efforts in Finland in the 20th century achieved limited government recognition of the Sámi's rights as a recognized minority, but the Finnish government has clung unyieldingly to its legally enforced premise that the Sámi must prove their land ownership, an idea incompatible with and antithetical to the traditional reindeer herding Sámi way of life. This has effectively allowed the Finnish government to take without compensation, motivated by economic gain, land occupied by the Sámi for centuries.
Official Sámi policy. Norway.
The Sámi have been recognized as an indigenous people in Norway, 1990 according to ILO Convention 169 as described below, and hence, according to international law, the Sámi people in Norway are entitled special protection and rights. The legal foundation of the Sámi policy is Article 110A of the Norwegian Constitution, the Sámi Act, Act of June 12, 1987 No. 56 concerning the Sámi Parliament, the Samedigai, and other legal matters pertaining to the Sámis. The constitutional amendment states, it is the responsibility of the authorities of the state to create conditions enabling the Sámi people to preserve and develop its language, culture and way of life. This provides a legal and political protection of the Sámi language, culture and society. In addition, the amendment implies a legal, political and moral obligation for Norwegian authorities to create an environment conducive to the Sámis themselves, influencing on the development of the Sámi community, IBID. The Sámi Act provides special rights for the Sámi people, IBID. The Sámis shall have their own national Sámi parliament elected by and amongst the Sámis, Chapter 1-2. The Sámi people shall decide the area of activity of the Norwegian Sámi parliament. The Sámi and Norwegian languages have equal standing in Norway, Section 15. Chapter 3 contains details with regards to the use of the Sámi language. In addition, the Sámi have special rights to reindeer husbandry. The Norwegian Sámi parliament also elects 50% of the members to the board of the Finnmark estate, which controls 95% of the land in the county of Finnmark. Norway has also accepted international conventions, declarations and agreements applicable to the Sámi as a minority and indigenous people, including the International Covenant on Civil and Political Right, 1966. Article 27 protects minorities, and indigenous peoples, against discrimination. In those states in which ethnic, religious or linguistic minorities exist, persons belonging to such minorities, shall not be denied the right, in community with the other members of their group, to enjoy their own culture, to profess and practice their own religion, or use their own language. ILO Convention No. 169 concerning indigenous and tribal peoples in independent countries, 1989. The convention states that rights for the indigenous peoples to land and natural resources are recognized as central for their material and cultural survival. In addition, indigenous peoples should be entitled to exercise control over, and manage, their own institutions, ways of life and economic development in order to maintain and develop their identities, languages and religions, within the framework of the states in which they live. The International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination, 1965. The Union Convention on the Rights of the Child, 1989. The Union Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, 1979. The Council of Europe's Framework Convention for the Protection of National Minorities, 1995. The Council of Europe's Charter for Regional and Minority Languages, 1992. The Union Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, 2007. In 2007, the Norwegian Parliament passed the new Reindeer Herding Act acknowledging SIDA as the basic institution regarding land rights, organization, and daily herding management.
Sweden.
The Sametingslag was established as the Swedish Sámi Parliament as of January 1, 1993. Sweden recognized the existence of the Sámi nation in 1989, but the ILO Indigenous and Tribal Peoples Convention, C-169 has not been adopted. All indigenous rights are currently banned. The compulsory school ordinance states that Sámi pupils are entitled to be taught in their native language. However, a municipality is only obliged to arrange mother tongue teaching in Sámi if a suitable teacher is available and the pupil has a basic knowledge of Sámi. In 2010, after 14 years of negotiation, Laponia Tuot Judas, an association with Sámi majority control, will govern the UNESCO World Heritage Site Laponia. The reindeer herding law will apply in the area as well. In 1998, Sweden formally apologized for the wrongs committed against the Sámi.
Finland.
The act establishing the Finnish Sámi Parliament, Finnish, Saamelaiskäräjät, was passed on November 9, 1973. Finland recognized the Sámi as a people in 1995, but they have yet to ratify ILO Convention 169 concerning indigenous and tribal peoples. Finland ratified the 1966 UN Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, though several cases brought before the UN Human Rights Committee. Of those, 36 cases involved a determination of the rights of individual Sámi in Finland and Sweden. The committee decisions clarify that Sámi are members of a minority within the meaning of Article 27 and that deprivation or erosion of their rights to practice traditional activities that are an essential element of their culture do come within the scope of Article 27. The case of J. Landsman vs. Finland concerned a challenge by Sámi reindeer herders in northern Finland to the Finnish Central Forestry Board's plans to approve logging and construction of roads in an area used by the herdsmen as winter pasture and spring calving grounds. Finland's Sámi have had access to Sámi language instruction in some schools since the 1970s, and language rights were established in 1992. There are 3 Sámi languages spoken in Finland: North Sámi, Skald Sámi and Inari Sámi. Of these languages, Inari Sámi, which is spoken by about 350 speakers, is the only one that is used entirely within the borders of Finland, mainly in the municipality of Inari. Finland has denied any Aboriginal rights or land rights to the Sámi people. In Finland, non-Sámi can herd reindeer as well. Sámi people have had very little representation in Finnish national politics. In fact, as of 2007, Jan Siirujärvi, a Finnish Centre Party representative, was the first Sámi ever to be elected to the Finnish parliament.
Russia.
Russia has not adopted the ILO Indigenous and Tribal Peoples Convention, C-169. The inhabitants of the Kola tundra were forcibly relocated to Caucasus, collective communities, by the state. Most Sámi are in one Caucus at Livelihoods, Lovo 0. The 1822 Statute of Administration of Non-Russians in Siberia asserted state ownership over all the land in Siberia and then granted possessory rights to the natives. Governance of indigenous groups, and especially collection of taxes from them, necessitated protection of indigenous peoples against exploitation by traders and settlers. The 1993 Constitution, Article 69 states, "The Russian Federation guarantees the rights of small indigenous peoples in accordance with the generally accepted principles and standards of international law and international treaties of the Russian Federation." For the first time in Russia, the rights of indigenous minorities were established in the 1993 Constitution. The Russian Federation ratified the 1966 UN Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. Section 2 explicitly forbids depriving a people of its own means of subsistence. The Russian Parliament, Duma, has adopted partial measures to implement it. The Russian Federation lists distinct indigenous peoples as having special rights and protections under the constitution and federal laws and decrees. These rights are linked to the category known since Soviet times as the Malachishlen Narodi, small-numbered peoples, a term that is often translated as indigenous minorities, which include Arctic peoples such as the Sámi, Nenets, Evenki, and Chukchi. In April 1999, the Russian Duma passed a law that guarantees socio-economic and cultural development to all indigenous minorities, protecting traditional living places and acknowledging some form of limited ownership of territories that have traditionally been used for hunting, herding, fishing, and gathering activities. The law, however, does not anticipate the transfer of title in fee simply to indigenous minorities. The law does not recognize development rights, some proprietary rights including compensation for damage to the property, and limited exclusionary rights. It is not clear, however, whether protection of nature and the traditional places of inhabitation implies a right to exclude conflicting uses that are destructive to nature or whether they have the right to veto development. The Russian Federation's land code reinforces the rights of numerically small peoples, indigenous minorities to use places they inhabit and to continue traditional economic activities without being charged rent. Such lands cannot be allocated for unrelated activities, which might include oil, gas, and mineral development or tourism, without the consent of the indigenous peoples. Furthermore, indigenous minorities and ethnic groups are allowed to use environmentally protected lands and lands set aside as nature preserves to engage in their traditional modes of land use. Regional law, Code of the Murmansk Oblast, calls on the organs of state power of the oblast to facilitate the native peoples of the Kola North, specifically naming the Sámi, in realization of their rights for preservation and development of their native language, national culture, traditions and customs. The third section of Article 21 states, in historically established areas of habitation, Sámi enjoy the rights for traditional use of nature and activities. Throughout the Russian North, indigenous and local people are being denied rights to fish, hunt, use pasture land, or exercise control over resources upon which they and their ancestors have depended for centuries. The failure to protect indigenous ways, however, stems not from inadequacy of the written law, but rather from the failure to implement existing laws. Unfortunately, violations of the rights of indigenous peoples continue, and oil, gas, and mineral development and other activities, mining, timber cutting, commercial fishing, and tourism, that bring foreign currency into the Russian economy prevail over the rule of law. The life ways and economy of indigenous peoples of the Russian North are based upon reindeer herding, fishing, terrestrial and sea mammal hunting, and trapping. Many groups in the Russian Arctic are semi-nomadic, moving seasonally to different hunting and fishing camps. These groups depend upon different types of environment at differing times of the year, rather than upon exploiting a single commodity to exhaustion. Throughout northwestern Siberia, oil and gas development has disturbed pasture land and undermined the ability of indigenous peoples to continue hunting, fishing, trapping, and herding activities. Roads constructed in connection with oil and gas exploration and development destroy and degrade pasture land, ancestral burial grounds, and sacred sites and increase hunting by oil workers on the territory used by indigenous peoples. In the Sámi homeland on the Kola Peninsula in northwestern Russia, regional authorities closed a 50-mile (80-kilometer) stretch of the Pinnar River, and other rivers, to local fishing and granted exclusive fishing rights to a commercial company offering catch and release fishing to sport fishers largely from abroad. This deprived the local Sámi, see Article 21 of the Code of the Murmansk Oblast, of food for their families and community and of their traditional economic livelihood. Thus, closing the fishery to locals may have violated the test articulated by the UN Human Rights Committee and disregarded the Land Code, other legislative acts, and the 1992 presidential decree. Sámi are not only forbidden to fish in the 80-kilometer stretch leased to the Pinnar River Company but are also required by regional laws to pay for licenses to catch a limited number of fish outside the lease area. Residents of remote communities have neither the power nor the resources to demand enforcement of their rights. Here and elsewhere in the circumpolar north, the failure to apply laws for the protection of indigenous peoples leads to criminalization of local indigenous populations who cannot survive without poaching resources that should be accessible to them legally. Although indigenous leaders in Russia have occasionally asserted indigenous rights to land and resources, to date there has been no serious or sustained discussion of indigenous group rights to ownership of land.
Nordic.
On November 16, 2005 in Helsinki, a group of experts, led by former Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Norway Professor Carson Smith, submitted a proposal for a Nordic Sámi Convention to the annual joint meeting of the ministers responsible for Sámi affairs in Finland, Norway and Sweden and the presidents of the three Sámi parliaments from the respective countries. This convention recognizes the Sámi as one indigenous people residing across national borders in all three countries. A set of minimum standards is proposed for the rights of developing the Sámi language and culture and rights to land and water, livelihoods and society. The convention has not yet been ratified in the Nordic countries.
Sámi culture.
To make up for past suppression, the authorities of Norway, Sweden and Finland now make an effort to build up Sámi cultural institutions and promote Sámi culture and language.
Duoji craft.
Duoji, the Sámi handicraft, originates from the time when the Sámis were self-supporting nomads, believing therefore that an object should first and foremost serve a purpose rather than being primarily decorative. Men mostly use wood, bone, and antlers to make items such as antler-handled scrimshort Sámi knives, drums, and guksi, bell cups. Women used leather and roots to make items such as gakti, clothing, and birch and spruce root woven baskets.
Clothing.
Gakti are the traditional clothing worn by the Sámi people. The gakti is worn both in ceremonial contexts and while working, particularly when herding reindeer. Traditionally, the gakti was made from reindeer leather and sinews, but nowadays, it is more common to use wool, cotton, or silk. Women's gakti typically consist of a dress, a fringed shawl that is fastened with 1 silver to 3 silver brooches, and boots shoes made of reindeer fur or leather. Boots can have pointed or curled toes and often have band-woven ankle wraps. Eastern Sámi boots have a rounded toe on reindeer fur boots, lined with felt and with beaded details. There are different gakti for women and men. Men's gakti have a shorter jacket skirt than a women's long dress. Traditional gakti are most commonly in variations of red, blue, green, white, medium brown tanned leather, or reindeer fur. In winter, there is the addition of a reindeer fur coat and leggings, and sometimes a poncho, luhkka, and rope lasso. The colors, patterns and the jewelry of the gakti indicate where a person is from, if a person is single or married, and sometimes can even be specific to their family. The collar, sleeves and hem usually have appliques in the form of geometric shapes. Some regions have ribbonwork, others have twin embroidery, and some Eastern Sámi have beading on clothing or collar. Hats vary by gender, season, and region. They can be wool, leather, or fur. They can be embroidered, or in the East, they are more like a beaded cloth crown with a shawl. Some traditional shamanic headgear had animal hides, plaits, and feathers, particularly in East Sápmi. The gakti can be worn with a belt. These are sometimes band-woven belts, woven, or beaded. Leather belts can have scrimshawed antler buttons, silver concho-like buttons, tassels, or brass copper details such as rings. Belts can also have beaded leather pouches, antler needle cases, accessories for a fire, copper rings, amulets, and often a carved and/or scrimshawed antler-handled knife. Some Eastern Sámi also have a hooded jumper, mallets, from reindeer skins with wool inside and above the knee boots.
Media and literature.
There are short daily news bulletins in Northern Sámi on national TV in Norway, Sweden and Finland. Children's television shows in Sámi are also frequently made. There is also a radio station for Northern Sámi, which has some news programs in the other Sámi languages. A single daily newspaper is published in Northern Sámi, Ivia, along with a few magazines. There is a Sámi theatre, Birivas, in Kautokeino on the Norwegian side, as well as in Kiruna on the Swedish side. Both tour the entire Sámi area with drama written by Sámi authors or international translations. A number of novels and poetry collections are published every year in Northern Sámi, and sometimes in the other Sámi languages as well. The largest Sámi publishing house is Devi Gurji.
Music.
A characteristic feature of Sámi musical tradition is the singing of yoic. Yoics are song chants and are traditionally sung a cappella, usually sung slowly and deep in the throat with apparent emotional content of sorrow or anger. Yoics can be dedicated to animals and birds in nature, special people or special occasions, and they can be joyous, sad or melancholic. They often are based on syllabic improvisation. In recent years, musical instruments frequently accompany yoics. The only traditional Sámi instruments that were sometimes used to accompany yoic are the fadno flute, made from reed-like angelica or archangelica stems, and hand drums, frame drums and bowl drums.
Education.
Education with Sámi as the first language is available in all 4 countries, and also outside the Sámi area. Sámi University College is located in Kautokeino. Sámi language is studied in several universities in all countries, most notably the University of Tromsø, which considers Sámi a mother tongue, not a foreign language.
Festivals and markets.
Numerous Sámi festivals throughout the Sápmi area celebrate different aspects of the Sámi culture. The best known on the Norwegian side is Riddu, though there are others, such as Ajurisigit and Inari. Among the most festive are the Easter festivals taking place in Kautokeino and Karasjok prior to the springtime reindeer migration to the coast. These festivals combine traditional culture with modern phenomena such as snowmobile races.
Visual arts.
In addition to duoji, Sámi handicraft, there is a developing area of contemporary Sámi visual art. Galleries such as Sámi Dagwavdas, Sámi Center for Contemporary Art, are being established.
Dance.
For many years there was a misconception that the Sámi were the only indigenous people without a dance tradition in the world. A shamanistic Arctic people without dance does not make sense and is more likely to be a suppression of dance tradition due to its relationship to pre-Christian shamanic traditions. Sámi dance companies have emerged such as Company Nomad. A book about the lost Sámi dance tradition called Jagnpa den Fosvunna Samiska Dawnsen was recently published by Umeå University's Center for Sámi Research, CESAM. In the eastern areas of Sápmi the dance tradition has been more continuous and is continued by groups such as JOHTTI Company.
Reindeer husbandry.
Reindeer husbandry has been and still is an important aspect of Sámi culture. During the years of forced assimilation, the areas in which reindeer herding was an important livelihood were among the few where the Sámi culture and language survived. Today in Norway and Sweden, reindeer husbandry is legally protected as an exclusive Sámi livelihood, such that only persons of Sámi descent with a linkage to a reindeer herding family can own, and hence make a living off, reindeer. Presently, about 2,800 people are engaged in reindeer herding in Norway. In Finland, reindeer husbandry is not exclusive and is practiced to a limited degree also by ethnic Finns. Legally, it is restricted to EU EEA nationals resident in the area. In the north, Lapland, it plays a major role in the local economy, while its economic impact is lesser in the southern parts of the area, province of Oulu. Among the reindeer herders in Sámi villages, the women usually have a higher level of formal education in the area.
Sapmi.
Sápmi is the name of the cultural region traditionally inhabited by the Sámi people. Non-Sámi and many regional maps have often called this same region Lapland as there is considerable regional overlap between the two terms. Lapland can be either misleading or offensive, or both, depending on the context and where this word is used, to the Sámi. Among the Sámi people, Sápmi is strictly used and acceptable. Sápmi is located in northern Europe, includes the northern parts of Finno-Ugric and spans 4 countries, Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Russia.
Area.
There is no official geographic definition for the boundaries of Sápmi. However, the following counties and provinces are usually included. Dalarnas Land County in Sweden, Finnmark County in Norway, Jämtlands Land County in Sweden, Lapland Region in Finland, Murmansk Oblast in Russia, Nord-Trøndelag County in Norway, Nordland County in Norway, Norrbottens Land County in Sweden, Troms County in Norway, Västerbottens Land County in Sweden. The municipalities of Gällivare, Jokkmokk and Arjeplog in Swedish Lapland were designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1996 as a Laponian area. The Sámi domicile area in Finland consists of the municipalities of Enontekiö, Utsjoki and Inari as well as a part of the municipality of Sodankylä.
Important Sámi towns.
The following towns and villages have a significant Sámi population or host Sámi institutions, Norwegian, Swedish, Finnish or Russian name in parentheses. Arna, Anna, Orana, Inari, is the location of the Finnish Sámi Parliament, Saajo Sámi Cultural Centre, SAKK, Saamelaisalojen koulutuskeskus, FI, Sámi Education Institute, Anareskalis Inari Sámi Language Association, and the Inari Sámi Theatre Museum. Arborti, Hertgeldal, is a Southern Sámi centre with a Southern Sámi language school and a Sámi culture centre. Arjplog, Detnu, Tana, has a significant Sámi population. Devtaswadna, Tired, is a centre for the Lul Sámi population. The Aran Lul Sámi Centre is located here. Gaiwatna, Kaid, Trims, is an important centre for the Sea Sámi culture. Each summer the Ridu Ridu festival is held in Gaiwatna. The municipality has a Sámi language centre and hosts the Ajar Sámi Centre. The opposition against Sámi language and culture revitalization in Gaiwatna was infamous in the late 1990s and included Sámi language road signs being shot to pieces repeatedly. Jiran, Kiruna, proposed seat of the Swedish Sámi Parliament, Guvdajiridnu, Kortokano, is perhaps the cultural capital of the Sámi. About 90% of the population speaks Sámi. Several Sámi institutions are located in Kortokano including the Sámi Theatre, a Sámi High School and Reindeer Herding School, the Sámi University College, the Nordic Sámi Research Institute, the Sámi Language Board, the Resource Centre for the Rights of Indigenous People, and the International Centre for Reindeer Husbandry. In addition, several Sámi media are located in Kortokano including the Sámi Language Asu newspaper, and the DAT Sámi Publishing House and Record Company. Kortokano also hosts the Sámi Easter Festival, which includes the Sámi Grand Prix 2010, Sámi Music Festival, and the Reindeer Racing World Cup. The Kortokano Rebellion in 1852 is one of the few Sámi rebellions against the Norwegian government's oppression against the Sámi. Ianuda, Orinadat, Inontkio, Juelavari, or Vahcir, Galaver, Jagdamacht, Jokmok, holds a Sámi market on the first weekend of every February and has a Sámi school for language and traditional knowledge called Samijagpadusgovdasj. Karasjoka, Karasjok, is the seat of the Norwegian Sámi Parliament. Other important Sámi institutions are located in Karasjoka, including NRK Sámi Radio, the Sámi Collections Museum, the Sámi Art Centre, the Sámi Specialist Library, the Mid-Finnmark Legal Office, the Inner Finnmark Child and Youth Psychiatric Polyclinic, the Sámi Specialist Medical Centre, and the Sámi Health Research Institute. In addition, the Sápmi Cultural Park is in the township, and the Sámi language Minaji newspaper is published here. Levnjar, Laxalv, in Pasangu, Pasanja, municipality is the location of the Finnmark estate and the Sagat Sámi newspaper. The Finnmark Erendomen organisation owns and manages about 95% of the land in Finnmark, and 50% of its board members are elected by the Norwegian Sámi Parliament. Lurjava, Lovo 0, Livelihoods, Östersund, is the centre for the southern Sámi people living in Sweden. It is the site for Gatij, Centre for South Sámi Culture, a living source of knowledge for South Sámi culture, history and business. Livelihoods also hosts the Sámi Information Centre and one of the offices to the Sámi Parliament in Sweden. Urjoka, Utsjoki, Snas, Snasser, is a centre for the Southern Sámi language and the only municipality in Norway where Southern Sámi is an official language. The Semian seat Southern Sámi Museum is located in Snas. Anjaga, Nesby, is an important centre for the Sea Sámi culture. It is also the site for the Varjat Sámi Museum and the Norwegian Sámi Parliament's Department of Culture and Environment. The first Sámi to be elected into the Norwegian Parliament, Isak Saba, was born there. Arvis Javri, Arvidsau. New settlers from the south of Sweden didn't arrive until the second half of the 18th century. Because of that, Sámi tradition and culture has been well preserved. Sámi people living in the south of Norrbotten, Sweden, use the city for reindeer herding during the summer. During winter they move the reindeers to the coast, to Pitya.
Demographics.
In the geographical area of Sápmi, the Sámi are a small population. According to some, the estimated total Sámi population is about 70,000. One problem when attempting to count the population of the Sámi is that there are few common criteria of what being a Sámi constitutes. In addition, there are several Sámi languages and additional dialects, and there are several areas in Sápmi where few of the Sámi speak their native language due to the forced cultural assimilation, but still consider themselves Sámi. Other identity markers are kinship, which can be said to, at some level or other, be of high importance for all Sámi, the geographical region of Sápmi where their family came from, and or protecting or preserving certain aspects of Sámi culture. All the Nordic Sámi parliaments have included as the core criterion for registering as a Sámi the identity in itself. One must declare that one truly consider oneself a Sámi. Objective criteria vary, but are generally related to kinship and or language. Still, due to the cultural assimilation of the Sámi people that had occurred in the four countries over the centuries, population estimates are difficult to measure precisely. The population has been estimated to be between 80,000 and 135,000 across the whole Nordic region, including urban areas such as Oslo, Norway, traditionally considered outside Sápmi. The Norwegian state recognizes any Norwegian as Sámi if he or she has one great-grandparent whose home language was Sámi, but there is not, and has never been, any registration of the home language spoken by Norwegian people. Roughly half of all Sámi live in Norway, but many live in Sweden, with smaller groups living in the far north of Finland and the Kola Peninsula of Russia. The Sámi in Russia were forced by the Soviet authorities to relocate to a collective called Livelihoods, in the central part of the Kola Peninsula.
Division by geography.
Sápmi is traditionally divided into Eastern Sápmi, Kola Peninsula, Eastern Norway and Finland Sámi regions, Northern Sápmi, most of northern parts of Norway, Sweden and Finland, Luleå Sápmi, Luleå River Valley area, Southern Sápmi, Southern Sweden and Norway Sámi area. It should also be noted that many Sámi now live outside Sápmi, in large cities such as Oslo and Norway.
Division by language.
Below is a division based on Sámi language. The numbers are the estimated number of speakers of each language. Davasamasiela, Northern Sámi, 15,000. Julv-Samasiela, Lul Sámi, 1,500. Samkil, Kildin Sámi, 650. Noort-Tsorm, Skald Sámi, 500. Lula-Samasiela, Southern Sámi, 500. Anareska, Inari Sámi, 300. Tasami, 2. Yum Sámi, less than 20. Pite Sámi, less than 20. There are also two extinct Sámi languages, Kemi Sámi and Akala Sámi. Note that many Sámi do not speak any of the Sámi languages anymore due to historical assimilation policies, so the number of Sámi living in each area is much higher. As with many indigenous languages, all Sámi languages are at some degree of endangerment, ranging from what UNESCO defines as definitely endangered to critically endangered, and even extinct.
Division by occupation.
A division often used in northern Sámi is based on occupation and the area of living. This division is also used in many historical texts. Non-reindeer Sámi not living by the sea, in northern Sámi Dalan. Non-nomadic Sámi is now probably the largest group of Sámi, reindeer Sámi, in northern Sámi Bozo Zapmlash or Bajalmash. Previously nomadic Sámi living as reindeer herders. Now most have a permanent residence in the Sámi core areas. Some 10% of Sámi practice reindeer herding, which is seen as a fundamental part of a Sámi culture and, in some parts of the Nordic countries, can only be practiced by Sámis, see Sámi, in northern Sámi Miara Sapmlash. These live traditionally by combining fishing and small-scale farming. Today, often used for all Sámi from the coast regardless of their occupation. Historical texts often divide the Sámi into Forest Sámi, Mountain Sámi, River Sámi, and Eastern Sámi.
Division by country.
According to the Swedish Sámi Parliament, the Sámi population of Norway is 40,000. If all people who speak Sámi or have a parent, grandparent, or great-grandparent who speaks or spoke Sámi are included, the number reaches 70,000. As of 2005, 12,538 people were registered to vote in the election for the Sámi parliament in Norway. The bulk of the Sámi live in Finnmark and northern Troms, but there are also Sámi populations in southern Troms, Nordland and Trøndelag. Due to recent migration, it has also been claimed that Oslo is the municipality with the largest Sámi population. The Sámi are in the majority only in the municipalities of Gudbrandsdal, Kautokeino, Karasjoka, Karasjok, Passenger, Detnutana and Unjarga Nesby in Finnmark, and Gaivatna, Caird, in northern Troms. This area is also known as the Sámi core area. Sámi and Norwegian are equal as administrative languages in this area. According to the Swedish Sámi Parliament, the Sámi population of Sweden is about 20,000. According to the Finnish Population Registry Centre and the Finnish Sámi Parliament, the Sámi population living in Finland was 7,371 in 2003. As of December 31, 2006, only 1,776 of them had registered to speak one of the Sámi languages as the mother tongue. According to the 2002 census, the Sámi population of Russia was 1,991. Since 1926, the number of identified Sámi in Russia has gradually increased. Census 1926, 1,720, this number refers to the entire Soviet Union. Census 1939, 1,829, Census 1959, 1,760, Census 1970, 1,836, Census 1979, 1,775, Census 1989, 1,835, Census 2002, 1,991.
Sámi immigration outside of Sápmi.
There are an estimated 30,000 people living in North America who are either Sámi, or descendants of Sámi. Most have settled in areas that are known to have Norwegian, Swedish and Finnish immigrants. Some of these concentrated areas are Minnesota, North Dakota, Iowa, Wisconsin, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, Illinois, California, Washington, Utah and Alaska. And throughout Canada, including the Canadian territories of the Northwest Territories, Yukon, and the territory now known as Nunavut. Descendants of these Sámi immigrants typically know little of their heritage, because their ancestors purposely hid their indigenous culture to avoid discrimination from the dominating Scandinavian or Nordic culture. Though some of these Sámi are diaspora that moved to North America in order to escape assimilation policies in their home countries, many continue to downplay their Sámi culture in an internalization of colonial viewpoints about indigenous peoples and in order for them to try to blend into their respective Nordic cultures. There were also several Sámi families that were brought to North America with herds of reindeer by the US and Canadian governments as part of the Reindeer Project designed to teach the Inuit about reindeer herding. Some of these Sámi immigrants and descendants of immigrants are members of the Sámi Siida of North America. There are Sámi whose history is known, and also ones with histories that are not known. Back in the 1600s Sweden began the settlement of its New Sweden colony, now Delaware. This included Sámi families rounded up in winter time. This continued for a number of years and included hundreds of trips between Sweden and America. For a variety of reasons some of these Sámi relocated to the Chesapeake Bay area and to roughly what is now Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. Later, with the arrival of the Quakers, they relocated to York County, Pennsylvania, just one of the reasons the county has the same township names as Lancaster. Over time that community expanded and moved west, leaving behind a legacy in a series of towns, townships, villages and small cities typified by having names that include the word deer.
Organization.
Sápmi demonstrates a distinct semi-national identity that transcends the borders between Norway, Sweden, Finland and Russia. There is no movement for complete autonomy.
Sámi parliaments.
The Sámi parliaments, Sámdigai in northern Sámi, Samitic in Inari Sámi, Saimta in Skolt Sámi, founded in Finland, 1973, Norway, 1989, and Sweden, 1993, are the representative bodies for peoples of Sámi heritage. Russia has not recognized the Sámi as a minority and, as a result, recognizes no Sámi parliament. There is no single, unified Sámi parliament that spans across the Nordic countries. Rather, each of the aforementioned three countries has set up their own separate legislatures for Sámi people, even though the three Sámi parliaments often work together on cross-border issues. In all three countries, they act as an institution of cultural autonomy for the indigenous Sámi people. The parliaments have very weak political influence, far from autonomy. They are formally public authorities, ruled by the Scandinavian governments, but have democratically elected parliamentarians, whose mission is to work for the Sámi people and culture. Candidates' election promises often get into conflict with the institution's submission under their governments, but as authorities, they have some influence over the government.
Norwegian organizations.
The main organizations for Sámi representation in Norway are the Seaders. They cover northern and central Norway.
Swedish organizations.
The main organizations for Sámi representation in Sweden are the Seaders. They cover northern and central Sweden.
Finnish organizations.
In contrast to Norway and Sweden, in Finland, a Seader, Paliskunta in Finnish, is a reindeer herding corporation that is not restricted by ethnicity. There are indeed some ethnic Finns who practice reindeer herding, and in principle, all residents of the reindeer herding area, most of Finnish Lapland and parts of Oulu province, who are citizens of EEA countries, that is, the European Union and Norway, Iceland and Liechtenstein, are allowed to join a Paliskunta.
Russian organizations.
In 2010, the Sámi Council supported the establishment of a cultural center in Russia for Arctic peoples. The Center for Northern Peoples aims to promote artistic and cultural cooperation between the Arctic peoples of Russia and the Nordic countries, with particular focus on indigenous peoples and minorities.
Border conflicts.
Sápmi, the Sámi traditional lands, cross four national borders. Traditional summer and winter pastures sometimes lie on different sides of the borders of the nation-states. In addition to that, there is a border drawn for modern-day Sápmi. Some state that the rights, for reindeer herding and, in some parts, even for fishing and hunting, include not only modern Sápmi but areas that are beyond today's Sápmi that reflect older territories. Today's borders originate from the 14th to 16th centuries when land-owning conflicts occurred. The establishment of more stable dwelling places and larger towns originates from the 16th century and was performed for strategic defense and economic reasons, both by peoples from Sámi groups themselves and more southern immigrants. Owning land within the borders or being a member of a Seader, Sámi corporation, gives rights. A different law enacted in Sweden in the mid-1990s gave the right to anyone to fish and hunt in the region, something that was met with large skepticism and anger amongst the Seaders. Court proceedings have been common throughout history, and the aim from the Sámi viewpoint is to reclaim territories used earlier in history. Due to a major defeat in 1996, one Seader has introduced a sponsorship reindeer godfather concept to raise funds for further battles in courts. These internal conflicts are usually conflicts between non-Sámi landowners and reindeer owners. Cases question the Sámi ancient rights to reindeer pastures. In 2010, Sweden was criticized for its relations with the Sámi in the Universal Periodic Review conducted by the Working Group of the Human Rights Council. The question whether the Ulls territory is owned by the governments, Crown land, or by the Sámi population is not answered. From an indigenous perspective, people belong to the land does not belong to people, but this does not mean that hunters, herders, and fishing people do not know where the borders of their territories are located as well as those of their neighbors.
National symbols.
Although the Sámi have considered themselves to be one people throughout history, the idea of Sápmi, a Sámi nation, first gained acceptance among the Sámi in the 1970s, and even later among the majority population. During the 1980s and 1990s, a flag was created, a national song was written, and the date of a national day was settled.
Flag.
The Sámi flag was inaugurated during the Sámi Conference in Sweden, on August 15, 1986. It was the result of a competition for which many suggestions were entered. The winning design was submitted by the artist Astrid Bahle from Skibotn, Norway. The motif, shown right, was derived from the shaman's drum and the poem Pagan Pane, Sons of the Sun by the South Sámi Anders Elmer describing the Sámi as sons and daughters of the sun. The flag has the Sámi colors, red, green, yellow and blue, and the circle represents the sun, red, and the moon, blue.
The Sami People's Day.
The Sámi National Day falls on February 6 as this date was when the first Sámi Congress was held in 1917 in Trondheim, Norway. This congress was the first time that Norwegian and Swedish Sámi came together across their national borders to work together to find solutions for common problems. The resolution for celebrating on February 6 was passed in 1992 at the 15th Sámi Congress in Helsinki. Since 1993, Norway, Sweden and Finland have recognized February 6 as Sámi National Day.
Song of the Sami People.
Sámi Soga Lavlla, Song of the Sámi People, lit. Song of the Sámi Family was originally a poem written by Isak Saba that was published in the newspaper Saga Uralic for the first time on April 1, 1906. In August 1986, it became the national anthem of the Sámi. Ansar Lee set the poem to music, which was then approved at the 15th Sámi Conference in Helsinki in 1992. Sámi Soga Lavlla has been translated into all of the Sámi languages.
Religion.
Widespread shamanism persisted among the Sámi up until the 18th century. Most Sámi today belong to the state-run Lutheran churches of Norway, Sweden and Finland. Some Sámi in Russia belong to the Russian Orthodox Church, and similarly, some Skald Sámi resettled in Finland are also part of an Eastern Orthodox congregation, with an additional small population in Norway.
Traditional Sami religion.
Traditional Sámi religion was a type of polytheistic paganism. See Sámi deities. There was some diversity due to the wide area that is Sápmi, allowing for the evolution of variations in beliefs and practices between tribes. The old beliefs are closely connected to the land, animism, and the supernatural. Sámi spirituality is often characterized by pantheism, a strong emphasis on the importance of personal spirituality and its interconnectivity with one's own daily life, and a deep connection between the natural and spiritual worlds. Among other roles, the Sámi shaman, or nudi, enabled ritual communication with the supernatural through the use of tools such as drums, chants, and sacred objects. Some practices within the old Sámi religion included natural sacred sites such as mountains, springs, land formations, as well as man-made ones such as petroglyphs and labyrinths. Sámi religion shared some elements with Norse mythology, possibly from early contacts with trading Vikings, or vice versa. Through a mainly French initiative from Joseph Paul Guynemer as part of his La Recherche expedition, Lars Levi Laerstadius began research on Sámi mythology. His work resulted in fragments of Lappish mythology, since by his own admission, they contained only a small percentage of what had existed. The fragments were termed theory of gods, theory of sacrifice, theory of prophecy, or short reports about rumorous Sámi magic and Sámi sagas. Generally, he claims to have filtered out the Norse influence and derived common elements between the South, North, and Eastern Sámi groups. The mythology has common elements with other traditional indigenous religions as well, such as those in Siberia and North America.
Missionary efforts.
The term Sámi religion usually refers to the traditional religion, practiced by most Sámi until approximately the 18th century. Christianity was introduced by Roman Catholic missionaries as early as the 13th century. increased pressure came after the Protestant Reformation, and rune drums were burned or sent to museums abroad. In this period, many Sámi practiced their traditional religion at home, while going to church on Sunday. Since the Sámi were considered to possess witchcraft powers, they were often accused of sorcery during the 17th century and were the subjects of witchcraft trials and burnings. In Norway, a major effort to convert the Sámi was made around 1720, when Thomas von Wesson, the apostle of the Sámi, burned drums, burned sacred objects, and converted people. Out of the estimated thousands of drums prior to this period, only about 70 are known to remain today, scattered in museums around Europe. Sacred sites were destroyed, such as Sayadi, stones in natural or human-built formations, Olda and Saivu, sacred hills, springs, caves and other natural formations where offerings were made. In the far east of the Sámi area, the Russian monk Tryphon converted the Sámi in the 16th century. Today, St. George's Chapel in Nydon, Norway, 1565, testifies to this effort.
Lustadius.
Around 1840, Swedish Sámi Lutheran pastor and administrator Lars Levi Lustadius initiated among the Sámi a puritanical Pietist movement emphasizing complete abstinence from alcohol. This movement is still very dominant in Sámi-speaking areas. Lustadius was a natural linguist, and he became fluent and preached in Finnish and Northern Sámi in addition to his native Southern Sámi and Swedish, the language he used for scholarly publications. Two great challenges Lustadius had faced since his early days as a church minister were the indifference of his Sámi parishioners, who had been forced by the Swedish government to convert from their shamanistic religion to Lutheranism, and the misery caused them by alcoholism. The spiritual understanding Lustadius acquired and shared in his new sermons filled with vivid metaphors from the lives of the Sámi that they could understand. About a God who cared about the lives of the people had a profound positive effect on both problems. One account from a Sámi cultural perspective recalls a new desire among the Sámi to learn to read and a bustle and energy in the church, with people confessing their sins, crying and praying for forgiveness. And the theft of reindeer diminished, which had a positive influence on the Sámi's relationships, finances and family life.
Neo-shamanism and traditional healing.
Today there are a number of Sámi who seek to return to the traditional pagan values of their ancestors. There are also some Sámi who claim to be nudie and offer their services through newspaper advertisements, in New Age arrangements, or for tourist groups. While they practice a religion based on that of their ancestors, widespread anti-pagan prejudice has caused these shamans to be generally not viewed as part of an unbroken Sámi religious tradition. Traditional Sámi beliefs are composed of three intertwining elements: animism, shamanism, and polytheism. Sámi animism is manifested in the Sámi's belief that all significant natural objects, such as animals, plants, rocks, etc., possess a soul. And from a polytheistic perspective, traditional Sámi beliefs include a multitude of spirits. Many contemporary practitioners are compared to practitioners of neo-paganism, as a number of neo-pagan religions likewise combine elements of ancient pagan religions with more recent revisions or innovations, but others feel they are attempting to revive or reconstruct indigenous Sámi religions as found in historic, folkloric sources and oral traditions. A very different religious idea is represented by the numerous wise men and wise women found throughout the Sámi area. They often attempt to heal the sick through rituals and traditional medicines and may also combine traditional elements, such as older Sámi teachings, with newer monotheistic inventions that Christian missionaries taught their ancestors, such as readings from the Bible.
Language.
There is no single Sámi language, but a group of 10 distinct Sámi languages. 6 of these languages have their own written standards. The Sámi languages are relatively closely related, but not mutually intelligible. For instance, speakers of Southern Sámi cannot understand Northern Sámi. Especially earlier, these distinct languages were referred to as dialects, but today, this is considered misleading due to the deep differences between the varieties. Most Sámi languages are spoken in several countries, because linguistic borders do not correspond to national borders. All Sámi languages are endangered. This is due in part to historic laws prohibiting the use of Sámi languages in schools and at home in Sweden and Norway. Sámi languages, and Sámi song chants, called Uralics, were illegal in Norway from 1773 until 1958. Then, access to Sámi instruction as part of schooling was not available until 1988. Special residential schools that would assimilate the Sámi into the dominant culture were established. These were originally run by missionaries, but later, controlled by the government. For example, in Russia, Sámi children were taken away when aged 1 to 2 and returned when aged 15 to 17 with no knowledge of their language and traditional communities. Not all Sámi viewed the schools negatively, and not all of the schools were brutal. However, being taken from home and prohibited from speaking Sámi has resulted in cultural alienation, loss of language, and lowered self-esteem. The Sámi languages belong to the Uralic language family, linguistically related to Finnish, Estonian, and Hungarian. Due to prolonged contact and import of items foreign to Sámi culture from neighboring Scandinavians, there are a number of Germanic loanwords in Sámi, particularly for urban objects. The majority of the Sámi now speak the majority languages of the countries they live in, that is, Swedish, Russian, Finnish and Norwegian. Efforts are being made to further the use of Sámi languages among Sámi and persons of Sámi origin. Despite these changes, the legacy of cultural repression still exists. Many older Sámi still refuse to speak Sámi. In addition, Sámi parents still feel alienated from schools and hence do not participate as much as they could in shaping school curricula and policy. In Norway, the name of the language and the people is often spelled Sámi. In Finland, the name of the language is spelled Saam and the name of the people Saamelainen.
Genetic studies.
Anthropologists have been studying the Sámi people for hundreds of years for their assumed physical and cultural differences from the rest of the Europeans. Recent genetic studies have indicated that the two most frequent maternal lineages of the Sámi people are the haplogroups V and U5b, ancient in Europe. The Y chromosomal variety in the Sámi is also consistent with their European ancestry. It suggests that the large genetic separation of the Sámi from other Europeans is best explained by assuming that the Sámi are descendants of a narrow, distinctive subset of Europeans. Other haplogroups suggest additional input from other populations at various times. This tallies with archaeological evidence suggesting that several different cultural groups made their way to the core area of Sámi from 8000 to 6000 BC, presumably including some of the ancestors of present-day Sámi.
History of scientific research carried out on the Sámi.
The genetic makeup of Sámi people has been extensively studied for as long as such research has been in existence, although until recent times, the purpose of this research has mostly been at best ethnocentric, at worst discriminatory and defamatory. Ethnographic photography of the Sámi began with the invention of the camera in the 19th century. This continued on into the 1920s and 1930s, when Sámi were photographed naked and anatomically measured by scientists, with the help of the local police, sometimes at gunpoint, to collect data that would justify their own racial theories. Thus, there is a degree of distrust by some in the Sámi community towards genetic research. Some examples of discriminatory actions are, the Statens Institut for Race Biology compulsory sterilization project for Sámi women, which continued until 1975, and Sámi graves being plundered to provide research materials, of which their remains and artifacts from this period from across Sápmi can still be found in various state collections. In the late 19th century, colonial fascination with Arctic peoples led to human beings exhibited in human zoos. Sámi people were exhibited with their traditional lavvu tents, weapons, and sleds, beside a group of reindeer at Tierpark Hagenbeck and other zoos across the globe.
Notable people of Sámi descent. Explorers and adventurers.
Samuel Bolto, 1861–1921, Arctic explorer, one of the first people to cross Greenland on skis. together with Nornsen, and gold miner, Lars Monsen, 1963-present, adventurer, explorer, journalist and author.
Literature.
Ella Holm-Bull, 1929-2006, author, musician. Anders Elmer, 1795-1876, Protestant priest and poet. Wrote down the mythological joke that inspired the Sámi flag. Ailo Gorp, 1944-present, an author and neo-shaman who participated in founding the Birja Sámi Theatre. Isak Mikael Saba, 1875-1925, politician and writer. Was the first Sámi parliamentarian, Norwegian Labour Party, and wrote the Sámi national anthem. Johan Jury, 1854-1936, wrote one of the first novels in the Sámi language. Nils Aslak Velkirpa, 1943-2001, musician, poet and artist. Gladys Koski Holmes, 1932-2005, a Sámi American artist, writer, and poet. Holmes won poetry awards, published a children's book, and was the Sámi Cedar of North America's ambassador to the Cedar Art Show at the NANA Festival in Tromsø.
Music.
Jazz, popular musical group. Ensemble, Sámi musician and law professor. Adjugars, musical group. Mari Boyne, 1956-present, musician. Oystein Arseth, former guitarist for black metal band Mayhem. Ian Brun, singer and songwriter. Frode Elheim, Joik musician. Inger Antti Ailo Gorp, 1960-present, actor, composer, and folk musician. Sophia Janok, 1982-present, performer, musician and radio host. Joni Mitchell, 1943-present, musician and painter. Jaco Pastorius, 1951-1987, influential American jazz musician, composer and electric bass player. Wim Sari, 1959-present, musician. Lisa Cecilia the Massenbosio, or Lap Lisa, 1878-1932, singer. Nils Aslak Velkirpa, 1943-2001, musician, poet and artist. Niko Velkirpa, 1968-present, musician and songwriter. Mikkel Moritaja, 1984-present, rap musician. Jon Javela, 1974-present, musician and songwriter. Ulap Tijjavi, 1971-present, Joik singer. The Black Sheeps, punk rock band. Berit Margtoskal, 1977-present, Sámi joiker and musician.
Sámi people working in film and theatre.
Birja Sámi Theatre, Mikkel Gorp, actor. Nils Gorp, 1955-present, film director. Well-known films include Ofellas, Pathfinder, which was nominated for an Academy Award, and the 2008 film Kortokano Approrit, based on the Kortokano Rebellion. Annie Kristina Juso, 1979-present, actress. Tommy Wirkola, 1979, Norwegian filmmaker of Finnish Sámi descent. Lance Henriksen, 1940, actor of Norwegian parentage. His grandmother was Sámi. Renée Zellweger, 1969, Oscar-winning actress whose Norwegian mother is of partial Sámi descent.
Politics and society.
Margutta, ca. 1369 ca. 1425, missionary. Lars Levi Laerstadius, 1800-61, religious reformer, botanist and ethnologist. Ole Henrik Bagger, 1947-present, politician. The first president of the Norwegian Sámi Parliament, NSR, and first chairman of the UN Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues. Helga Pedersen, 1973-present, politician. The first Sámi member of government, Minister of Fisheries and Coastal Affairs, Norwegian Labour Party. Elsa Laurenberg, 1877-1931, politician who among other things organised the first International Sámi Conference. Isak Mikael Saba, 1875-1925, politician and writer. Was the first Sámi parliamentarian, Norwegian Labour Party, and wrote the Sámi national anthem. Jan Siirujärvi, 1975-present, politician. The first Sámi Member of Parliament of Finland. Jason Unruh Sámi, Canadian founder of Maoist Rebel News and author of several Marxist-Maoist books.
Visual arts.
Hans Ragnar Mattheson, artist. Joni Mitchell, 1943-present, musician and painter. Nils Aslak Velkieper, 1943-2001, musician, poet and artist.
Sports.
Ailo Gorp, 1980-present, a motocross sportsman who invented the underflip. Morten Gamst Pedersen, 1981-present, football player, currently playing for Blackburn Rovers. Borgi Saming, 1951-present, legendary NHL defenseman, member of Hockey Hall of Fame, voted to the IIHF All-Century Team. Anja Parson, 1981-present, and Jens Bigmark, 1985-present, alpine skiers, the Sápmi national football team.
Other.
Gran, the single noble family of Sami descent, Swedish